And we're back. All right. Hi, guys. Ready to talk about partnerships now. As soon as I can click in the right place. Thank you. So an important thing to remember is that nonprofit organizations do not have competitors. They have partners. Obviously, you are competing with every other nonprofit organization for donors and volunteers and even clients and attention. But it's a good idea to be used to calling those other organizations your partner organizations rather than your competitors, because people really want nonprofits to work together. So there are different types of partners that you're going to have. There are referral partners, and that just means that you guys refer people to each other. So let's say it's a homeless shelter and a free clinic. The homeless shelter might refer their guests to the clinic to get certain services, or the clinic, if they find out that a patient is homeless, they might refer them to the clinic. So, to the shelter. So those are referral partners. And then there's collaborative partners. So perhaps you have a program that does, I don't know, that trains service animals, and someone else has a program that helps do help for victims of crime, and you bring those two things together somehow. Anyway, that would be like a collaborative partnership that you work together on a certain project. And then there's leveraging partners. I really kind of think of these as influencers. These are just the groups or organizations you need to be associated with. So let's say if you're a nonprofit, you need to be a member of the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. You need to attend the meetings. You need to be present. You need to be in with other different organizations. You need to go to conferences. This is just to ensure that you are front of mind. So whenever I say, I'm going to go get a cola, what's in the front of your mind? Well, probably Coke or Pepsi. And that's because they have shown up through advertising, right? They are front of mind to you when you think about that category. So as a nonprofit, you want to be front of mind when somebody says homeless shelter. You want somebody to think of your homeless shelter. All right, partnerships can be formal or informal. So a formal partnership, you would have a memo of understanding or a memo of agreement. And really, this is sort of like a contract, except that you're probably not exchanging money. Now, sometimes that happens, that you're exchanging grant monies, or you're kind of sharing resources. But a lot of times it just says, we are going to work together on this project, or we will do this if you do that. So that's a memo of understanding or a memo of agreement. It could also just be an informal relationship where you just kind of touch base every once in a while. I know that there are, if you become a United Way agency, there is like a United Way agency directors group where all of the directors of all the United Way agencies get together every couple of months and just kind of talk. And then there's something that's kind of in between. So it's somewhat formal, somewhat informal. Probably that United Way would be more of kind of a semi-formal. So it's organized, but you're not necessarily agreeing to do anything. So there are just different types of relationships. All right, now we are moving on to fundraising, and this is the area I have spent the most of my career working in, is fundraising. So like I said, I am definitely going to try to not get into the weeds on this. I do want to make something perfectly clear. The guy standing on the corner holding a cardboard sign is not doing fundraising. The jar on the counter of the convenience store, that is not fundraising. Fundraising, however, something you might be familiar with is you maybe go to a store and they ask you if you want to donate an extra $1 to whatever thing that they're doing. That is fundraising. Even though it kind of seems the same as the dollar, the jar on the counter, it's completely different. And here's why. It is organized, it's well tracked, and the money goes where it should. There's somebody making sure the money goes where it's supposed to go. Whereas with the jar on the counter, I have heard of lots of times when somebody just walks by and just picks up and walks off with that jar. Or I've even heard of people being fraudulent and saying they need help with something when they really don't. So it's important to remember that is not fundraising. I'm not really sure what you would call it, but it's not fundraising. Here are the different types of fundraising. So you've got annual giving, you've got peer-to-peer, events, corporate gifts, grants, major gifts, capital campaigns, and planned giving. There are thousands of books written on fundraising, probably dozens, if not hundreds, on each one of these. So literally, I am just touching the very basics of these so you know what they are. So annual giving. This is important for you to know because it's really confusing. An annual giving program, or when you talk about your annual gifts, it doesn't mean that somebody writes you a check once a year and then that's all you do. All right. So I almost wish they would just call them small gifts or something else, but annual giving is just small gifts. So if I write, well, for instance, I give to my National Public Radio every month. I give them like $10 a month every month. That is considered annual giving. It's a small gift. It's something I give to them over and over again. It might include your board donations. So 100% of your board needs to be donating to your organization. It could be family and friends of your board members, of your employees. It could be Facebook, people that you talk to or you get to know on Facebook. You give them an opportunity to donate. Direct mail, like an end-of-year campaign. You know, in November and December, you get all of that mail saying, please make Christmas warm and happy for these people. Well, that's an end-of-year campaign. That's to try to get an annual gift from you. Telephone solicitations. Oh, I skipped one. Employee and volunteer campaigns. Sometimes an organization will say, we're going to have this 1 month where we're going to ask our employees to raise money, $10,000 every February. I don't know, whatever it is. And then they have a party at the end of it. Telephone solicitations, I would say that there's less and less of that as time goes on, but every once in a while you'll still get a telephone solicitation. And then email campaigns. And those are also starting to go down a little bit just because people have all those spam blockers and everything on, but email still is used a lot in fundraising. This is considered the easiest way to get money in terms of fundraising. It's easier than all of the rest of them because all you have to do is ask somebody for money and they write you a check or they give you cash, and you don't have to do reports afterward. You don't have to do an audit afterward. You don't have to do any of that. Here is one of the Jedi mind tricks that I like to share with nonprofits when they are trying to secure donors who are going to give them annual gifts. Instead of asking somebody to write you a check for $100 for a donation, it's way better to ask them to do $10 a month. And there's a couple of reasons why. It seems like less money to the person, and you're going to be getting 20% more than you would have gotten if they'd given you a $100 check. So if they say, hey, I'll be happy to write you a $100 check, say, well, could I have you consider doing just $10 a month? And sure enough, once they've gotten in the habit of giving you $10 a month, it's probably just going to keep going. It just becomes very natural for them. So just a great way to keep it easy. Peer-to-peer fundraising or crowdfunding is another thing you'll hear about. This includes things like the Facebook, it's my birthday, please donate to ABC organization on my behalf for my birthday. Or my kid is doing a walkathon. Would you sponsor them $10 for every mile that they go? Whatever it happens to be, that would be peer-to-peer. That would be crowdfunding. So you could even say Girl Scout cookies are kind of a way of doing peer-to-peer. Oh, goodness. I've gone way backwards. There we go. Events. Events are part of fundraising. They are personally my least favorite, just because I think they're a pain, but they take all kinds of shapes and sizes. So maybe it's an event like a 5K run, where you charge people to be part of the run, and you use that money as for your organization. Golf tournaments, lunches where people kind of come and get to know each other. There's usually a program, and then they kind of make it clear they expect a donation. Obviously, they have those great big fancy galas where it costs $100 or $500 just to get in the door. And then they do auction items, and they give you lots of booze in the hopes that you'll write them a big check. One thing that I have seen, I've had a couple of clients do this with a lot of success, are doing like smaller craft nights. So like our botanical garden did a thing where you could do like an indoor, like a succulent garden. And so they gave you all of the stuff that you needed to put it together. And you sat there together, and I don't know what you're handing me. Oh, thank you. You so you sit there with your friends and you do a craft and you have a great time, and then you leave. So that's a great way to build people. And I have to leave here in a few minutes. That was what that was about, so that I didn't forget. You also have corporate gifts. And you know what? I'm going to just pause and come back to that so that I'm not late for my next thing. So I'll be back again. Bye. And I'm back again. All right. So events is what we were talking about. And now we're moving on to the next fundraising type of things, corporate gifts. Now, there are different types of corporate gifts. A lot of times corporations will provide in-kind gifts. So like Whole Foods will sometimes donate food. Obviously, and that's called an in-kind gift. It means it's not a cash gift. They're giving something. A lot of times, corporations will donate their old computers to a school, or office furniture, even paper or different supplies like that. They'll donate those to nonprofits. Those are corporate donations. They're called in-kind donations. Another type of corporate gift is a sponsorship. So the example I've got there is Coca-Cola sponsoring the Olympics. The U.S. Olympic Committee is a nonprofit organization, and they do get sponsors from lots and lots of different corporations. And they do it, the corporations do it for marketing reasons. Obviously, it's not really a donation per se, but they can still take it off their taxes because it's an expense or a donation, however they want to do it. There's another way of doing corporate gifts, which is where a corporation might partner with some nonprofits so that the corporation agrees to give a certain amount of all sales to the nonprofit. Sometimes you can do that with Sonic. We'll have nights where you can do that, or different restaurants. Some things that really come to mind are the Yoplait yogurt with those pink tops, where they will give you give a dime to the Komen Foundation for if you mail those in, or something silly like that. And then, of course, some of these kind of bother me. It's because it's just so clearly marketing rather than wanting to do good. Tom's always comes to mind. I like their shoes. They're good shoes, but honestly, they're not the most expensively made shoes. There's probably, $5 worth of materials in each shoe, and yet they sell them for $60. And they make you feel better about spending that money, because they say every time you buy one of our shoes, we will give a pair of shoes to a child in need. Well, let's think about that. You're paying $60 for $5 worth of shoe. And then you're buying an extra pair of $5 shoes that they are then donating to nonprofits in third world countries. And guess who gets the tax donation for that? Tom's Shoes gets the tax donation for that. So they are making you feel really good, but they're really the ones getting the benefit. Now, the kids who get the shoes also get the benefit, but anyway, I own a pair of Tom's shoes, but I bought them because I liked them, not because I thought that I was donating or that they were the world's best company. So just something to keep in mind. Those are all considered corporate gifts. Now let's talk about grants. This is my favorite because this is what I do. Probably more than anything else is I write grants. So grants are a type of donation, but they are they're like a donation with strings attached. So most of the time you have to ask for a grant through a grant proposal or some other process, and then after you get the grant, you usually have to jump through some hoops, like do a report or do this or do that. The good thing is, a lot of times foundations are the ones that give grants quite often, and it might even be a corporate foundation. So there's a difference between a corporate gift and a corporate foundation grant. A lot of times different corporations will start a foundation so that they can give gifts. And so you might hear that somebody gets a sponsorship from Ford Motor Company for their tournament or something like that. Well, that's a corporate gift. But then somebody might get a Ford Foundation grant to do medical research. Well, that's a grant from a foundation. So two different things. So grants from a foundation, most foundations do give away their money through grants. They are required to give away 5% of their assets every year, or of their value every year, and they do it with grants. But then you also have government grants, and government grants can be local, state, regional, federal, even international governments can give grants. So those are taxpayer dollars, and they're usually a lot bigger gifts. So it might be $400,000 or $1 million over 5 years or something like that. But they're really difficult to get, and then you have to do a lot of management afterwards. So federal grants are a really big deal. All right, major gifts. A major gift is a single large gift from an individual or a family. More often than not, it is tied to a specific project or campaign. However, not always. One of my clients just recently got a $500,000 check from a local philanthropist who just liked what they were doing and just gave him a check with no strings attached. So that was considered a major gift. But she didn't just look them up in the phone book or Google them and then just write them a check. They had a relationship with her for years. She had come out to the school and visited. They had invited her to different events. It took years for them to get to the point where she felt comfortable writing them a $500,000 check. So that can take years of cultivation. Now, what is a major gift? Is a major gift always $500,000? Well, not necessarily. It might be that your organization considers $5,000 to be a major gift. So a major gift is what the organization determines a major gift is. Capital campaigns. This is the next type of fundraising. A capital campaign is an organized, intensive fundraising campaign to raise an extraordinary amount of donations during a specific time period for one or more specific purposes. So universities, OSU has capital campaigns probably once every 10 years or so. It's usually to build a bunch of buildings and fund a bunch of scholarships, or maybe start a new program or build a new lab, or they usually package all of those things together into a capital campaign. It's where they raise, $100 million or something like that. Usually capital campaigns for nonprofits, though, are done to build a new building. And maybe it's just, I sound like this is just no money at all, but maybe it's just like $1 million to build a new building or build a new wing, or it's $500,000 to get some vans to drive around. Those are considered capital campaigns. So it's all hands on deck for raising this money. Very intense, raising lots of money, getting everybody involved to try to hit a goal in order to achieve a purpose. Planned giving is the pinnacle of fundraising. When you can get someone to leave you money in their will, then you know you're doing well. And planned giving is something that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of expertise. A lot of times people will donate, put something in their will, that part of their money will go to a nonprofit, or they might actually deed their house over to a nonprofit. They might give them stocks. They might give them their life insurance policy, meaning if they die, the nonprofit gets all the money, make them a beneficiary. So there's lots and lots of planned giving. So let's talk about moves management. So when I talked about cultivating people, remember when I talked about major gifts might take years of cultivating them? Well, when you get someone, if you have a good fundraising plan, you have moves management throughout the process. So when somebody writes you a small check, they give you $10 a month, obviously you want to keep them giving you $10 a month. Now, if that $10 a month person is a medical student, going to med school, they're going to be a doctor, and maybe right now they can afford to give you $10 a month, but in 20 years, they're going to be able to give you a major gift. So you want to make sure and keep them on the radar. Even if they're just giving you $10 a month, $20 a month, it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're a medical student or a blue collar worker, or a construction worker, a trucker, whoever they are. If you've got them on board, you want to just keep them engaged, make them part of your mission and what you are accomplishing. Now, you're going to get a lot more people willing to give you $5 or $10. That's why this looks like a funnel, right? You want to get a bunch of $5 or $10 people, and then you want to kind of move them along all the way down into planned giving. So maybe you get 100,000 people who give you small gifts, but then you only have 50,000 who give you a repeat annual gift. Then maybe you only have 1,000 people who attend events that you hold. Maybe you only have 50 major donors. It goes on like that, but hopefully over time, it just builds and builds and builds. So again, I want to take you back to this hierarchy of nonprofit needs. What we have been talking about is the fundraising and the partners and public relations. These are the external things. I want to make sure that you understand that nothing in a nonprofit stands on its own. The mission, without fundraising, without money, there is no mission. Without programs, there is no mission. You can never achieve your vision if you don't have good staff and volunteers. So everything in a nonprofit, this is all connected. And what we just talked about today was one piece of that success pyramid. So that's all I've got for now, and I finally got this finished. It only took me all day. See you later. Bye-bye.